Chapter 1: The King's Concubines. The concept of a king's concubine has a long history and can be traced back to ancient civilizations, including ancient Egypt, Mesopotamia, China, and various other cultures. Concubines were women who held a lower status than the king's primary wife or wives, but were still involved in a sexual relationship with the king and often bore his children. The practice of having concubines was typically associated with monarchies or rulers who had considerable power and influence. In today's culture, these types of relationships are commonplace amongst men of all distinctions. Modern terminology calls it a side piece, which is a slang phrase that refers to a person who is involved in a romantic or sexual relationship with someone who is already in a committed relationship or marriage. Out of all the passages in the Bible, the context of a concubine created in me this resolve to understand the psychology of a woman. Women are amazing, peculiar, intelligent, smart, beautiful, gorgeous, hardworking, and all other adjectives that you can name, and yet they operate on a system called lock and key. Growing up, I always wanted to understand the secrets for getting multiple women to support a man's movement. I'm not talking about sexually or in a physical prostitution type of engagement. Pay attention, black men, one time, so that I can give you some game about how to see women and build up your mojo without selling yourself short in the sexualized game of life. The hidden truth about black men is that they will deny the fact that women can become their greatest weakness, hurdle, distraction, pain, and promise. Women were created in a multifaceted algebraic concept. Let me break this down. Women are equational axioms. An axiom is a rule or idea that helps us to understand math better. In the case of the female, she helps the black man to calculate the distance from rock bottom to the mountaintop. It's the proverbial pay to play game to the 10th power. The higher the man's energy rise, the greater the knowledge needed to obtain her most prized possession. Think of it as a rule in a game. In math, this rule often looks like an equation, which is a number sentence with an equal sign in the middle. On each side of the equal sign, we have parts of the number sentence that use math actions, like adding or multiplying, and letters that stand for numbers. So an axiom is like a rule or a code of law that shows us how different parts operate in math, which represents to the black man love, life, hustle, business, family, success, mental health, and peace. Did you know that letters on rappers' chains, iced in diamonds, are used to psychologically attract women? Regardless of how it makes the man behind the jewelry feel, it's a mathematical equation to women. Let me break this down. King Solomon mastered the letters and numbers game to the degree that he could use 700 political wives and 300 concubines in an attempt to create through the surrounding nations of his kingdom. Like any black man in the 21st century who has garnered a high level of success, he must thrive on being able to sleep in peace throughout the night, which is important for his overall mental health and well-being. In another vein of existence, the rich carry camera systems, gated communities, bodyguards, lawyers, and various support systems that allow them the peace to provide the sustenance for their followers, community, and or audience. Whatever you are peeping, the sideshows, shorts, Instagram clips, and YouTube content, seek to always look for what is not being said. After years of fighting through the maze of social media, I realized that a big world is being formed outside of what is not being portrayed in the media. Women are not as dumb as you think, and those who you call simps are actually the ones playing a different game. Pimps are not only the players in the world, of macking. Yes, the pimp game has shifted to high-end escorts, OnlyFans, legalized prostitutions, strip clubs, and other salacious forms of exploitation, but the psychology of the game is just not emerging. I have done the work and read every book imaginable about the laws of power, pimping, women, seduction, dark psychology, and black wealth. Given there is nothing new under the sun, I found myself seeing the information go round and around in a circle. Didn't players jumping into put a spin on an old game? Out of all the things you could put in the Bible about a black king, referring to King Solomon, why in the world would there be a narrative about a black man having over 1,000 women, including 2 prostitutes? Something to think about. Do you want to know why pimping is such a remarkable game to play for those who can master their own sexualized game of chess? Well, deep down in the heart of a black man, he is a psychologist. After 30 years of digesting the world of sexuality, I came to the realization that we as black men are on a journey towards what I like to call the carefree mind. King Solomon breaks it down for us in Proverbs 15 when he explains that a merry heart creates happiness, but sorrow of the mind, mental depression, breaks the spirit. I don't know about you, but I refuse to live all of my life in the mode of fear, depression, and anxiety. Why is it then necessary for the black man to be always looking over his shoulder, wondering where he will live, job stability, protection for his children, and the landing spot for generational wealth in the midst of past generations of poverty? My suggestion for you when it comes to women, particularly black women in general, is to find your lane. Don't play psychological chess with that black woman. Get checkmated and then take out your frustrations on another black woman. Wisen up in your dealings of the opposite sex. Life is a marathon, but it's not a crime to find the lane that you might feel will help you to fulfill your purpose on earth. Does marriage ring a bell to you? Can you live an entire life in the player stage? Are you a pimp? Are you into polygamy? The reason I am bringing about a variety of scenarios is because not every black man uses his faith as a barometer for his level of engagement in relationships. Faith in this context relates to bringing in divine guidance or the help of a higher power in finding a mate. In the fast lane, we are dating, having casual sex, one-night stands, and running up our body counts without any context or appreciation for the divine narrative. I was this guy in the fast lane and used my early 20s to have as much fun as possible while I was in college because I never seemed to get the good job, network with the right people, or build a reality for which there was a pathway towards me building a successful career and networking and making sure that my life could create a projection of success. I was the rebel. I was fighting against the grain of what was supposed to make sense. I kept my ear to the ground and fought hard to only accept advice that resonated with my spirit. Like many of you brothers struggling to balance women, work, career, children, side hustles, and family, it's not an easy proposition when you are thinking about always having a chick in your pocket. Let me break down chick in the pocket so that you can use the downtimes in your life for rejuvenation and a refresher course on human psychology. Whether you believe it or not, as a black man, you have been tasked to become a psychologist in your own right. For whatever reason, black men believe that they must always be in relationship, contact, cohabitating, or talking to a woman. Why is this wrong on so many levels? Let me explain. One of the reasons it's critical to break the chick in the pocket syndrome off of your mind is because your mind has been hardwired since the beginning of time to figure out your life without any serendipitous female relationships distracting or pulling your mind in different directions. Women are powerful creatures and therefore need to be respected as such. When you view women through the eyes of your penis, you only distort your perception of life. Women are wired to go and sleep with 15 men, have 2 kids, make love to one of their friends' boyfriends on the side, and still create an environment that would allow her the freedom to get all the support she needs and deserves. The game is just not fair, and once you understand how to play the game, then things will smooth out a lot better in terms of your perception of how the game is being played when it comes to the male-female relationship context. I am not talking about all women. I'm speaking in generality because many women do fall through the cracks of life. If you are paying attention, you should begin to start piecing together the puzzle that is necessary for your evolution. The game that I learned in the past 30 years about women, relationships, love, sex, black marriage, semen retention, celibacy, and pornography has granted me a narrative for uncovering hidden truths about the sensuality and sexuality of a black man. The hidden truth, puberty, one-night stands, and the marriage bed is nothing more than a short narrative for awakening the creative talents and gifts in you. If you are praying to God for change, purpose, and the opportunity to live a free, harmonious, and prosperous life, then it's important to use your manhood as a means for personal growth and development, not for living in the bowels of your lower nature. I got trapped in that lower nature because I didn't have to work hard to earn a woman's respect, honor, or trust. I didn't open doors, buy flowers, court, write love letters, or create any type of a dynamic that would allow me to get to know a person. I played a much different game that ended up costing me 20 years of my life. Karma is truly a bitch. In the case of black men who may take a look at King Solomon and fathom the inhibitions of multiple women, recognize that these types of relationships are dangerous without proper guidance. As the wisest black king to ever exist, why wasn't 50 women good enough for King Solomon? What does having a large amount of women at one's disposal, 700 wives and 300 concubines, say about the mindset of a black man? If each wife or concubine represented a nation for political expansion, what does this say about the influence women held when it comes to politics in the 10th century BCE era? If the idea of marriage and politics in the mind of a black king made sense in ancient Egypt, why does it make sense in 2025? If there is nothing new under the sun, then what are we missing as black men when it comes to power, community, sociality, protection, relationships, and women? What is secret is sacred. King Solomon used women as political pawns in a game of global warfare. The knowledge and wisdom that God granted him presented a new level of truth when it comes to partnerships. I bet King Solomon carried a leadership aura about himself that made women want to help him build. Growing up as a little boy watching the successes and failures of his black father, King Solomon realized a powerful secret about women that he observed by watching King David in action. Nowhere in the scripture do we read about any of those concubines, wives, or princesses stealing, setting him up, giving him a disease of some sort, gossiping, or exposing their international affairs with other national leaders. It seemed that power was the glue for any woman to see a man with 100 wives and want to join the fray. In the end, these women were a part of his downfall, but they served as a great lesson when it comes to contentment. What this tells me about King Solomon was that he learned how to monetize his sensual desires. Like pimps and escorts of our day that generate millions of dollars and toe a fine line between sex trafficking and exploitation, they understand the importance of thinking outside the box. For the record, I'm not advocating prostitution, the pimp culture, escorts, or any deviant behavior that goes against the framework of Christianity. But there are lessons in the Bible that help us to reorient our understanding of human psychology, global power structures, and secret agendas that are taking place in the dark crevices of America. King Solomon wanted to play a bigger game in life. Most black men want to play a bigger game in life. It's just that they are not willing to partner with different foreign interests for the sake of kingdom expansion. It definitely takes resources to climb from the bottom of the pit, but also a willingness to stay single until you have built up the mindset to see women as viable partners in the game of life. So when a black man is playing the playboy, Mac, or pimp in this life, he is not ready to settle into the role of a marital political engagement. Grabbing a girlfriend, wife, and relationship to appease your sexual appetites is a sign of immaturity and a lack of self-discipline. If you prioritize women over your God, faith, or work, it will backfire and exude nothing but inner frustration until you can conquer those desires. It's not an accident that black men cheat on their wives. If God blesses you with the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding before he blesses you with the money, women, real estate, administration, and global alliances, count it all joy. Just know that you can still be led away from righteousness by the lure of beautiful trinkets in life. King Solomon's pursuit of knowledge and understanding led him to explore various relationships as a means of acquiring wisdom and establishing diplomatic alliances. His pursuit of knowledge and wisdom was admirable, but his collection of 1,000 women took him away from his faith and beliefs. If it can happen to the richest man to ever live, it most certainly can happen to one of us. In the end, the power dynamics played a significant role in the relationship between kings and their concubines. The king held absolute power and authority, and his concubines were often chosen based on their beauty, youth, or connections to influential families. The concubines, on the other hand, had limited agency and were subjected to the desires and decisions of the king. Their position within the hierarchy of the royal court was often precarious, as they could be easily replaced or discarded at the king's discretion. Consent, as understood in modern relationships, was rarely a consideration in the context of a king's concubines. In today's global landscape, women are trafficked because a new set of circumstances surrounding global political alliances are at work. In the 10th century BCE, when King Solomon ruled, women were often given to the kings as gifts, political alliances, or as a way to strengthen ties with the influential families. They had little to say in their role as concubines and were expected to comply with the desires of the king. The power imbalance between the king and his concubines made it difficult for them to freely express their desires, set boundaries, or negotiate the terms of their relationships. We live in a totally different world given social media and the global politics of our day. The modern understanding of relationships emphasizes the importance of consent and mutual respect. Consent involves the voluntary and enthusiastic agreement of all parties involved in a sexual or romantic relationship. It requires open communication, active listening, and the ability to establish boundaries and negotiate the terms of the partnership. Modern relationships strive for equality and a balance of power between partners, where both individuals have agency and the ability to express their needs and desires. Communication is a vital aspect of fulfilling and satisfying partnerships in the modern context. Open and honest communication allows individuals to express their feelings, discuss expectations, and negotiate compromises. It fosters understanding, trust, and emotional intimacy between partners. In healthy relationships, communication serves as a foundation for resolving conflicts, addressing issues, and maintaining a strong connection. The concept of a king's concubine stands in stark contrast to our modern understanding of relationships. It highlights the evolution of societal norms and values, including the recognition of individual agency, consent, and the importance of communication. While the power dynamics in these historical relationships were often one-sided and unequal, modern relationships aim to create a partnership based on mutual respect, trust, and shared decision makings. A king's concubine as a reference point should help you to understand the foundations of black male sexuality. It's a given that white America is afraid of a black man's anatomy because of the power it will to destroy their race as a whole. Black male sexuality has more to do with power, politics, real estate, and land than it does sex itself. Sex is a beautiful thing, and when used correctly can bring forth life and expand our planet in a beautiful way. Yet, as young black men begin to enter puberty and learn about sex and sensuality through the physical changes that take place in their bodies, a whole new level of education is needed for placing their emotions in check. If I was taught that sex was about building a powerful kingdom and becoming a multimillionaire real estate developer, I would have utilized my sexual nature in a different manner. I recognize black men are getting this type of game from family members, but that represents a small number apart from the other 90% of young black men who will struggle for many years understanding how to control the power that God gave them. When it comes to a black man's sexuality, you must know your limitations. Robert Greene, world-renowned author of the 48 Laws of Power, created a new monster in the laws of human nature. In chapter 11, he breaks down the law of grandioso, where humans tend to think highly of themselves and in the process slowly deviate from reality. King Solomon, in this sense, used his Promethean foresight to project how his 1,000 subjects would respond and react to his blueprint even in his old age. King Solomon was wrong on many levels and underestimated the nature of humans to persuade, resist, and deviate from prescribed patterns of thought. King Solomon ran his kingdom with an iron fist and created laws and treaties that created order, but overlooked that mastery is an ongoing process that often requires many generations to perfect. The overall message is that in today's society, it can be extremely dangerous to pull up many bodies, sexual partners, for the sake of one's own self-pleasure and self-delusion. The ramifications of doing so will create the success delusion and give your mind the impression that because you were able to conquer the mountain of a few sexual experiences, that in years to come, that will always be the case. As a black man, it's important to recognize when the seasons have changed in your life, you must begin to elevate your consciousness and begin to play a bigger game in life. The feeling starts within, and as you begin to trust what the universe is calling for, you begin the process of letting go. Letting go of old baggage, bad habits, unfruitful relationships, spiritual misalignment, and trauma bonding curses that could potentially upset your evolution. I'm sure King Solomon missed the memo when God told him to let go of those women. In the mind of King Solomon, these women probably represented safety, peace, and political engagements, something he wanted to keep in his arsenal for times of change. Nevertheless, there is a price to be paid for disobedience.